Okay, so we are recording and ready to get started. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight for our annual owners meeting. We appreciate everybody being here to get an update on the co-op. Why is this not moving?
That makes sense.
All right, so hopefully you know that Prairie Food Co-op has a mission to open a community-owned, democratically operated grocery store that is focused on supporting our local farmers and food producers. Here's our agenda for the evening. I'm going to remind everyone that we have elections going on right now through the end of the meeting and how to vote. I'll provide a quick status of the co-op and what's up next for us. Then our treasurer will be giving an income and expenses report for the year, as well as an update on where we're at with our lenders. Jerry Nash, who's our ownership and outreach lead, will be giving a status on our outreach efforts. And then at the end of the meeting, we're going to have a Q&A session. So there's 3 different presenters. So if you have questions, just hold them to the end and we have plenty of time for Q&A. All right, so as you know, we have a board of directors and here are the currently elected board. And we are very thankful to every one of these people who are serving on our board. We meet not only twice monthly for 2 hours, the first and third Tuesday of every month, but every person listed here also contributes a significant amount of additional work towards developing our store. So I would just like to give a very big round of applause and thanks to all of our current directors who have done so much work throughout not only last year, many of these people on their second or third term. So thank you very much to all of these wonderful folks. We would not be where we are at without all of their help. All right, so hopefully you're aware that we currently are running elections. Our board, we elect a certain number of people. It's usually usually 3 to 4 people per year annually. That's your opportunity as an owner to have your voice heard on our board. This year we have 10 candidates running for 5 spots and the voting concludes at the end of this meeting. You should have got an email with several reminders to vote. If you don't see that in your email, please check your spam folders. Again, please do vote. We have a really excellent high quality group of people running to be your voice on our board. So I'm going to go through. Sorry, I'm trying to control 2 computers here. So I'm going to go through where we're currently at in the development of our co-op and where we're going. So hopefully everybody is aware of the status of what's happening at 109 South Main. It's a big project and it's very visible in our community, but we have sent out multiple emails and we also have a status on our website about what our current projections for opening at 109 South Main are. And I'd like to walk through that quickly because I know not everybody might be aware of that. So we had a signed lease with Holiday developers who are developing the 109 South Main project to raise $4.4 million by December 30th. We did not meet our goal, and so we were able to get an extension through March 1st. So as of that date, we had raised $1.6 million from our ownership. We have collected all of that except for $250, which is outstanding, but that's all being held in escrow. We also have a $1.2 million bank commitment from West Suburban Bank and Leaf, but that was dependent on us raising the rest of the capital needed. And we also have over $300,000 in owner equity. But quick math will tell you that that leaves a funding gap. We have about a $1.2 million funding gap. So the board and volunteers have been working with the village and the county since last fall to try to get some funding for that gap. We approached the village of Lombard and requested $400,000 in TIF financing, upfront TIF financing. The grocery store at 109 South Main would be in the downtown TIF district. And that is a historical use of TIF funds to bring catalyst businesses to the downtown areas. Also, the village of Lombard has been trying to open a grocery store in our downtown community for over 20 years. Unfortunately, Our village does not have a policy currently that provides upfront TIF funding for Prairie Food Co-op or any business. They do have some incentives that are available, but that's once you're operational. There's no policy for upfront funding. So we were denied, and the village board was not interested in creating a new policy to provide any upfront funding. We also inquired about a low or no interest loan. So that would not be free money. That would be something that the co-op would pay back over time, but that is also not an available option through the account or through the village. So we also requested $400,000 from the county for their ARPA funds. They got over $135 million from the federal government in ARPA funding. Our request for that was denied. And we have applied for over $1 million in grants through the past couple of years. Just this month, we applied for over $1 million in grant funding through several different grants. The problem is there's a lot of need out there, especially with COVID. We're competing against organizations that just have a lot of higher need than we do. We are not in a low income community. DuPage County is one of the wealthiest communities in the country. We are also not a food desert. So even though we submit high quality grants, we are often ranked low because of those factors. So we are not counting on grant funding to help us at this point, help us make up for our funding gap, though we are still applying. So here's where we're at in terms of contributions and pledges to date. As I mentioned, we have raised $1.6 million through our ownership. We did that through 2 very intense capital campaigns where we sent over 6,000 emails, made several thousand phone calls and texts. It was a lot of work, but we're happy with the outcomes. And you can see the breakdown of the distribution of the average amount that was contributed per contribution type. We offered preferred shares, loans, and donations. So the average investment amount or contribution amount was just under $3,000. So we looked at a lot of the food co-op data nationally to try to plan for what we think we can do. So nationally, I just wanted to talk about some averages, how PFC compares. So for food co-ops that are starting up nationally, we did pretty well in participation rate. We had 34% of our owners participate and contribute something. That pars with the 25% national average. So we did really well there, and we're happy with the number of people contributed. Where we struggled a little bit was the average contribution amount, which was $3,000. If you remove donations from that, it brings it up to about $4,000 that people invested in shares and loans. However, the national average has been $7,000. It was formerly about $5,000, but in the last couple of years, co-ops have had to raise a significantly more amount of money just because of the price increases, and co-ops have seen a little bit of a higher average in contributions due to that. And had we had 25% of our owners contribute that average, we would have raised about 2.7 million. I just wanted to kind of point out how we compare to other co-ops in other parts of the country doing the same thing that we're doing. Sorry, I'm going to check if I skipped a slide. Okay, no. So what is next? Our site team is working diligently and hard to find other viable options within Lombard. These are sites that have to be vetted through a market study, and they have to be financially viable. There are other options in Lombard. We are looking to reduce costs by pursuing slightly smaller spaces, but it's important for our ownership and our community to know that there is a limit to the space, the small size that we can open at. So it's about 7,000 square feet. And if we opened under that, we would not be considered a full service grocery store, and we would not be able to meet our mission. So 7,000 square foot is the floor for size. So we can't open in anything smaller than that. And so that tells us that to open anywhere in Lombard, even at the smallest size, we're going to need an additional $500,000 to $800,000 in funding, and I'll talk about that in a bit. The other big thing that we're focusing on this year is hiring our general manager. So the general manager will be the most important person we hire, and they will oversee store operations and ensure that Prairie Food Co-op is meeting its financial projections and is successful. It usually takes between 6 months and a year to find the right candidate. And that can be challenging because the general manager of a food co-op has to have a wide variety of skills. They have to have management, they have to have financial expertise, operational expertise. And it would be helpful if they understood policy governance and working with the board, because the board will oversee the general manager. So the other thing that's important is that the board will go through extensive training to make sure that the board has the ability to oversee the general manager and help them succeed. We need to make sure we have success metrics and are able to monitor the general manager to make sure that they're meeting those metrics. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what our future store will look like. Last year, we hired a consulting firm to do a store design and feasibility study for 109 South Main. And even though this is for 109 South Main, the layout is for 109 South Main, but the actual features of the store will carry with us to wherever we open in Lombard. So there's a couple key features of our future store. One is produce. Our mission is to support local farmers and food producers. So we're going to have a bold, beautiful, fresh, local produce section. We will be the only grocery store in DuPage County that has a wide selection of locally grown products. Only 5% of the food eaten in Illinois is grown in Illinois. So Illinois loses billions of dollars in potential revenue every year. Dan Arnett, who is part of the feasibility report and is also the general manager for Chicago Market, said that in his over 20 years of managing food co-ops across the entire country, he's never seen a region like ours that is so desperate for local products. So Prairie Food Co-op is in a really strong position to capitalize on the growing consumer demand for high quality local produce. I also want to point out that there's a large emphasis on bulk. So there'll be a wide variety of whole foods where shoppers can save money on key commodities, as well as reduce packaging. So the next key feature is the cafe seating and classroom. So we've always envisioned Prairie Food Co-op as being a community gathering space, and this meets that piece of our mission. It's an open and flexible plan, but it's designed to still feel like a separate, cozy space. And the space can be used flexibly. It can be used as a meeting space, an educational space, a performance space, and a day-to-day gathering and dining space. And the last of the key features is our quality meat and deli. So we're going to focus on well-curated foods, local and sustainable options. Illinois and the upper Midwest is known for its dairy farms and ranchers, and they're really looking for stores like Prairie Food Co-op to showcase their products. We'll also have a small but efficient kitchen and deli that will offer fresh juices, specialty drinks and gourmet coffees, and sandwiches that highlight the very best aspects of Chicago's rich history of quality service centered meat departments. And I also want to talk a little bit about the sustainability features of the store. I am not the architect, so I'm not going to go into detail on this, but it was important for the board that the design incorporated a lot of sustainability features. So some of those include a robust composting program. Our cases will feature LED lighting, high efficiency fans, and most will have glass doors to keep the refrigerated air inside. The store will have LED lighting and feature motion sensors in work areas in the restrooms to conserve energy. And the compressor room will capture heat, which will be reused throughout the store as needed. And those are just a couple of the key features, but there's many more sustainability features built into the store design. So what is required to make this beautiful vision a reality? Like I said in an earlier slide, we know that we need to be 7,000 square feet to meet our mission and be a full service grocery store. So with the current market and the cost of construction and equipment, which have gone up a lot during the past 2 years because of COVID related supply chain issues, we have estimated that that's going to be at a minimum $3.5 million. We have looked at ways to reduce costs. Used equipment is a big expense, so there's some opportunity there to purchase used equipment. The problem is right now, equipment lead times are sometimes 12 months or more. So a lot of companies that would normally just purchase new equipment have purchased used instead to get them through that lead time, which means the used equipment market has really dried up. Our bank loan is capped at 27% of project costs. It is not collateralized, so they are not willing to give us much more than that. So that's the cap on the bank loan. So there's not a lot of ways to reduce our costs. So the board is pretty confident that 3.5 million is the minimum that we can that we have to raise to open this bright, beautiful store that we all envision. So where are we now in terms of funding? We've raised about 1.67, like I said, from our owners. The bank loan is probably going to be around $1 million because again, that's capped at 27% of total project costs. We might be lucky and get a landlord that's willing to throw some money towards our build out, if that's not a given, but we've included that in our estimate here. So right now we're sitting at about $2.9 million that we can count on. So that leaves us about $600,000 short, but that's based on that $3.5 million minimum. So the board is projecting that we have to raise anywhere from $500,000 to $800,000 to open anywhere in Lombard. So how are we going to raise that money? Like I've said, we have tried really hard to work with the village and the county for any funds that are out there. 80% of co-ops that have opened in the last few years have got significant funding in TIF and ARPA. We're just not in a high need community, so we're not finding that we have access to that upfront funding. The bank loans are capped at 27%. The grants, we're applying for them. Those are a lot of work. They're very competitive and they're not guaranteed. So at the end of the day, we're going to probably need to turn back to our owners to raise that remaining $500,000 to $800,000 that we need to open our store. So the board has decided to run one final capital campaign this fall to raise that remaining money so that we can move forward and open our store. And I am confident as well, the board is confident that if the community is really invested and excited about this store, we will absolutely raise that money this fall. So look for more information coming out on that. We always can use volunteers. There's a variety of things people can do to help. It's a lot of work and we're all volunteers. So any help we can get, we really appreciate. So please keep an eye out for more information about that coming up. So that is where we're at today. And I am at this point going to turn it over to our treasurer, Tom, to tell you about, what our expenses have been over the past year. And again, we will happily take questions and answers at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tom Lamberty. I've been with the co-op since 2014 and glad to help out as treasurer. Next screen, please. A brief summary here of where we are for the last year. Our fiscal year ends at the end of March. As typical for most years, almost all of our revenue is based on owner equity, which is the purchase of shares from our community, and we're very grateful to have over 1,600 owners at the moment. The merchandise here, it's actually revenue from donations. People would donate and we would send them t-shirts. And then we did get a small grant from one of our consulting firms, a memorial grant for the gentleman that helped us develop our pro forma. So in general, about 70,000 in income. For expenses, this just shows the four main categories, the big expenditures. Store design, when we look at a store such as Main Street, we have to have some guess on what's going to be in the store. So we hired two consulting firms who have different aspects of design to help us make our store fit into the available space. And they've come up with a very good design. Kathy has shown you some of the pictures. The capital campaign, which Jess, one of our board members, headed for the first 2 phases, that took up a lot of time and money as well, with all of the background computer information, the documents, website, organizing events to get it moving. Consulting fees, I'll have more details on that in the next slide. And then marketing and owner recruitment. That's where the bulk of our expenditures are. Next slide. Probably too much information here, but you see our revenue here, 76,000 for the year. The expenses, most of the categories, marketing and outreach, although very important. We've been lucky that our team, the owner outreach committee, has used their resources wisely and has a lot of ideas to use social media and community events, which have really helped us over the years. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of office expenses. Most of our dues and subscriptions are for behind the scenes activities. QuickBooks we use to do all of our accounting, make sure we can pass muster with our accountants and with the federal and state taxes. Different organizations, other names you may recognize, Zoom, MailChimp, Google, just different things we've used online. The 2 big categories, professional fees and capital campaign, basically came to about 85% of our expenditures. The market study was actually our 3rd market study. We had used 2 prior firms earlier, one when we were getting started with potential sites, a second one when we had narrowed down the sites. Each of those, we had a market study and a less expensive update. In the market we have, especially with the pandemic, grocery information changes very quickly. And if your study is 2 years old, it's out of date. It's got to be updated. And we just did one earlier this year covering several potential sites, including Main Street in Lombard. All very good information, which helped us to redo our pro forma. The pro forma is basically a very detailed guess of your expenditures and revenue, trying to figure out if you can actually afford to do this, and which we can, given if we could raise our money, we will easily be able to afford to do the store. We've had probably 6 different versions of the pro forma over time. As we learn more information about expenses, that helps to make our confidence in the numbers much more significant. And the banks we've been dealing with have been very impressed with the pro forma and our ability to answer questions. And that helps a lot when you're trying to raise money. The capital campaign, there was a lot of prep work, a lot of marketing. We had a consultant who helped us get it started, helped to motivate us, and really did a good job getting the people signed up and pledging and collecting the money. And then we had a phase 2 launch party just to give us a little more incentive. Next screen, please. And just a little summary on banks. We are dealing with one local bank, West Suburban. Then there are 2 regional banks and 1 national bank that we are also going to be applying for loans with. It's always good to have multiple choices. So far, we've had good communication with these banks, and we'll see how it works out. Thank you. Next.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tom. And for those wondering, me and Tom did coordinate our shirts tonight. I'm Jerry Nash. I'm the outreach and ownership and outreach coordinator. I'm also co-founder along with Kathy. And I want to explain this screen real quick. Usually it's just a picture of me and my name. But this year I kind of wanted to give full credit to the ownership and outreach team. It's always been the case that it's really a team effort, but especially this year, I really wanted to shout out to all the people for all the excellent work that's been done in outreach over the last year. This year has been unlike any others, required a lot of just outreach work in general. And we not only met that goal, but we actually surpassed it with really great work. And it wouldn't be possible without all these people. So give them a little round of applause, little virtual snaps. Oops. All right, and then we'll just jump into the usual owner numbers. We attracted 212 owners in the last year. Well, no, actually, we got a new owner today, so it's 213, which means we are at 1,649 owners. And even though those are great numbers, I like to look at it more, to me, a more accurate way to look at it is if you look at the numbers between January 2021 and January 2022, we attracted 479 owners, which is almost 500, which is just amazing and like surpasses any other year we've ever done by a lot. So a great last year. And right now, I do believe we're in a little bit of a lull with our owners, but I think that'll pick up, when and if, more exciting site news coming up. And now I want to talk about pretty much a lot of things we've done over the year. Over the last year, of course, I couldn't get to all of it. We've done so much, but I just want to pick and choose a few things that we've done that to me represent, the best of ownership, outreach, but also kind of our principles behind it. So first of all, it was great to get back to farmers markets for obvious reasons. We weren't at farmers markets in 2020. So it was great to get back last year. And of course, going to farmers markets is kind of a no-brainer. That's really our key demographic because most people there want to shop to buy from farmers and local food vendors. And another way to think about it is pretty much a lot of the food vendors and farmers at these markets will be people we hope to stock our shelves with. So it's a no-brainer to be at farmers markets. And we are a lot of our local annual events from organizations who share our values like SCARE, Sierra Club, Glen Ellen Park District. And so we're going to continue to do a lot of that this year too. We also just recently wrapped up our Spring into Wellness series, which we started last year. And we did them again this year because they were so popular. Basically, the criteria for those is that they're virtual because we started them during COVID times, but now it makes sense anyway, because they're usually in the beginning of the year anyway. They're virtual. They have a loosely themed about wellness, and they're free and open to everybody in our community, not just PFC owners, because we want to be part of our community, not just for our PFC owners, even though we love our PFC owners. And all of our videos are available on our YouTube page, which I will copy and paste. Now, real quick, let's see if I can. I'm going to copy and paste into chat a list of links that I'll be referencing. Give me a second. I think that's them. Okay, so there are a whole bunch of links now in chat. So whenever I talk about a link, it's in chat, and we will be mailing these out later too. All right, back to business. So another theme of a few things we did last year is our dedication to our environment. Of course, we practice our environmental principles when we do outreach or do events, but we also do events or outreach that are themed about our environment itself. So for example, last year around this time, maybe a little later, we did the importance of pollinator gardens, where Sue and Joe LaCroix of Saving Monarchs and very enthusiastic PFC owners opened up their yard for PFC owners and non-owners to come and take a tour of their yard and see the importance of pollinator gardens and how to attract more butterflies and pollinators in general. We really liked that event. It was a unique event, a lot of fun, and a good way to get PFC owners together. Actually, about a month ago, we had a community solar representative talk, and we still have the page up on our webpage about community solar, which basically is a way where if either you can't afford solar, or maybe your roof is too small, or you have maybe too many trees in your yard, if you can't have solar panels yourself, this is a way of having solar in your home. A portion of your energy comes from a solar farm, and you're also guaranteed to save 10 to 20% from ComEd, and we get a little kickback for referring. So this was a very environmentally focused event, and we're really happy about it, and I'll have a shout out about it at the end too. And I couldn't really talk about the last year as far as OO is short for ownership and outreach, by the way, without talking about the community investment program that easily took up most of our time and energy, in addition to all our usual things we do for the O&O. So first of all, I'll jump into the CIP launch party. I won't go too in depth. To me, this is the biggest event we did last year. It was one of those, everything turned out great attendance, a lot of energy, the weather cooperated, but I won't really go too far into the planning, but I just want to show you how we followed our principles on this as well. We wanted to support as much local business as possible. So of course we had it at Afterthought Brewing Company. We also got our donuts from Violet Crumb in Glen Ellen. We sourced all of our meat, which were handmade sausages from Jake's Country Meats just over the border in Michigan. And even though we didn't purchase anything from Righteous Kitchen, we've supported and partnered with them in the past. And so they were gracious enough to lend us their shaping dishes, serving utensils, and a lot of other that equipment that saved us a lot of money and helped us reduce our waste, so we didn't have to use as many disposable items. Also, Red Rock Property, which is conveniently next door to Afterthought, lent us tables and chairs, and they've actually been helping us for years, ever since our first Spooktacular. So it's great to support our community businesses and get support from our community businesses. Oh, and let me go back too. One other thing, practicing our principles, is that we actually had a trash can, a recycling bin, and a compost can. And that added a lot of work for us, but it's important for us to follow our principles. And at the end of the night, the biggest can was the recycling. The second biggest, though, was compost. And our smallest was our trash can. So in that way, we minimized waste and followed our principles. And also communications was a big part of last year. And I wanted to give a shout out to our communication team. Without them, our communications wouldn't have been as robust as they were. And all these people gave a lot of their time making sure they were top-notch and professional level. I'll show you the numbers for those and show you a lot of our beautiful output. We put out 128 newsletters, and actually just since a year ago. And a lot of that included outreach, general outreach, but most of that was CIP related. We went from putting out about 3 to 4 newsletters a month to putting out 3 a week during the height of the CIP. And those were all original content, not resets. And by the way, we also thank you for not unsubscribing, those who didn't. We asked you to be a little patient during this time as we sent you lots of newsletters, and 99% of you did not unsubscribe, which is awesome. We also had a great open rate for those, which we're really proud of. To support these newsletters and social media, we probably created about over 200 graphics, which we just didn't, pump out. We actually spent a lot of time thinking about those. And our graphics department, which is mainly Leslie and Beth, did an excellent job. Look at those graphics up there and you'll see. And also Katie, a lot of times turned those into Instagram posts. We also did 4 brochures. And if you're part of any organization and you've done a brochure or 2, you know how time consuming those could be if you want to do them right. The graphics, the copy, the wording, the layout, those take a lot of time. They take meetings to actually talk about and decide what you want to do. So putting out 4 is a great accomplishment. And just for comparison, we relied on the same brochure for 6 or 7 years of our development. And in the last year, we produced 4 different ones. We also put out over 750 social media posts. And these are all great quality, like the ones you see above. We still get a lot of recognition in the food co-op world for the strength and quality of our social media, and we're very proud of that. And we also I know I've been to over 100 meetings in the last year, and I know a lot of not just the O&O team, but also the communications team, the CIP team, and the board members have been to a lot of meetings. In fact, when I wrote that number, it literally didn't seem like a very accurate number. It seemed too low. I feel like I've been to 3,000 meetings in the last year, which is probably impossible, but it seems like it. And, you know, there's a graphic down there, and that's a graphic we had. It's 4 separate meetings we had in 5 days. And that wasn't an uncommon occurrence. That happened a lot. And maybe y'all know how maybe you get off from a long day at work and you want to just hang out with your kids or just eat a nice meal and relax. Well, so many of us just went to meetings. And I tell you that to know how hard we work for you. But to also, if there's, you know, anytime you think, oh, they didn't work hard enough to get that site, or they didn't work hard enough in this area, please think about all the people who have dedicated hours of their lives to making this a reality. Lag. Okay. Also, I want to talk about our altruistic side of the co-op. Principle 7 of the co-op principles talks about concern for community. It's something we've always practiced, but we've really been embracing it more in the last few years, especially since COVID hit. And in the last year, we did a food drive with Terra Costa Howard in November, which we estimate we helped area families donate over 500 pounds of food. And also what's special about all the food drives we've done, we always ask our owners to please consider giving the good stuff, getting, you know, in your pantry and giving the stuff that actual hungry, needy families would like to see at their food pantry instead of just pie filling and lima beans. We even ask our owners to maybe consider going for a special shopping trip. I know our household went to a few grocery stores to get the better stuff for the food drive. We also had a December Own Up Give Back promotion where we decided to donate $10 for every new owner we got in December, or actually from Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve. And in that time frame, we got 23 owners, which was 230 owners, which we bumped up to 250 owners. But also the Illinois Food Bank, Northern Food Bank, multiplied that by 8. So our $250 donation turned into a $2,000 donation. So we're really proud of that. And most food co-ops work extensively with their local nonprofits, and we intend to do the same when we're open. And we've already proven it by doing it when we're not open. Now I just want to talk about what's coming up in the near future. In a few weeks, we're excited to have our brews, news, and FAQs. This is something we've done in the past, where we meet at a local establishment for a beer or coffee, and we just hang out and talk to our owners and yet to be owners. We're having it at Afterthought, who are enthusiastic owners. And we're just inviting our owners and non-owners, and y'all come and, you know, you cover your beer tab and we'll cover the nachos that we're getting from Nacho Rita, another food co-op owner, another PFC owner. Also, at the end of May, we're having a film showing of Inhabitants, which is about Indigenous farmers and how they're restoring our land. And we're partnering with the Sierra Club and the Glen Ellen Historical Society for that as well. This Saturday, we'll be at the Growing Green Garden Market, weather permitting. The weather looks pretty iffy, but I think they're actually trying to think of an alternative to where we can be inside, but we're just gonna have to hear about that. We're also excited. We're doing a PFC ice cream cruise. We've had ice cream socials in the past, but we wanna make this a little bit more fun, where we'll meet at the Creamery, which I think is a new place that's coming by the Lombard Pool. And we'll have ice cream there, and then we'll bike over, or if anybody wants to drive or whatever, we'll meet at Cream and Villa Park and eat more ice cream if you want. We'll also be at our usual farmers markets and local events. There's a little lag in this. And also, this isn't a new idea, but we are kind of rebranding, relaunching, dusting the cobwebs off of it. For years, we've had the PFC business directory where we invite PFC owners who are also local business owners to list their business and maybe offer a perk to PFC owners. And we also invite our owners to frequent these businesses. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. And so we recently updated it. We also reorganized it so it's easy to navigate that page. And that's listed, by the way, in the comments. But one last thing is we want to put a graphic on it. So this is attendee participation part of this meeting. Would you please look at these and enter which graphic you like the best? And somebody pay attention to the comments because I can't in full screen, but I want to get an idea of what's winning. And whatever wins will be our graphic that we have. So please vote on that. I have my favorite, but I'm not going to tilt what y'all may think. And finally, I have my usual ask, which I've even concentrated down a little more this year to just the main essentials. Please, if you haven't already, please consider displaying a PFC yard sign. They're free. They're really easy to get. I got a link in the comments or they're on our webpage. All you do is fill out the form. It's easy. And our yard sign fairy will deliver them usually within a day or two if she's not on vacation. And also they're really beautiful. They fit well in the summer landscape. They sit well in a winter background. They're just really attractive signs. Also, talk to your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers about Prairie Food Co-op. That's probably the biggest reason people become co-op owners is by talking to people that they trust. And believe it or not, there's a lot of different ways you can start talking about PFC in any conversation. And one of the easier ways is having a PFC yard sign. Those prompt a lot of conversations. Also, stay informed. We're proud about having a very informed ownership, but never hurts to be more informed and be as informed as possible, especially in the last year when a lot is happening and changing. I'm sure many of you see it on social media, a lot of people speculating about Prairie Food Co-op, what's going on. And a lot of times people tell me about it and I step in or somebody else does and kind of gives a more professional answer. But we also expect our owners, if they're informed, to help us out in that territory because we can't be on every page. And some of them, a few of us are even kicked out of those pages. So we can't be on every page. And also, this is a unique request this year. Please consider checking out the community solar. It really does check out. It's a win-win-win all the way around. I truly believe the more people on solar energy, the sooner we can greatly lessen our carbon footprint, but also you'll save money and PFC does get a kickback. And for example, the Dill Pickle in Chicago also sponsored this program. And I think they're nearing $9,000 or $10,000 at this point from the money they got from their community signing up. And so I think that ends my portion of the meeting, and I think it ends our.
Yeah, we're going to go into Q&A and we're going to open that up. But before we do that, I wanted to read some of the questions that were in the chat that I don't know that everyone hasn't had a chance to see. There were really good questions. The first one I see is someone asked, Katie Pearson asked, can you open a 7,000 square foot store on the Holiday site? The Holiday site is the 109 South Main site in the downtown Lombard area. We consider that. We looked at that possibility. That site is pretty tight. If you've seen the building going up, in front where the residential piece is going to be, it's huge. We share that parking lot with the restaurant that's going to be at the first floor in that building already. So the parking's already tight just for Prairie Food Co-op. And if we had to split that space between Prairie Food Co-op at 7,000 square feet, that means there'd be one or possibly two other tenants to make up that remaining 3,000 square foot space. And we'd lose the parking we need. And we'd also lose truck access and loading dock capabilities or the ease of doing that. So that just was not a possibility for us. And all of our consultants who had seen the site said, absolutely do not consider that possibility. We would have loved to do that. I think that's a really great question. So thank you for asking. Someone else asked, is PFC still seeking owners and shareholders? Yes, we will forever be seeking owners. That's what a cooperative business is all about. It's people who think this is a good business and they want it in their community to invest in and become an owner in it. So yes, we will, even when the store is operational, we'll still be accepting ownerships. And we are also absolutely still accepting donations, preferred shares and loans, even though we're not doing an active campaign right now. That'll be in the fall. But yes, if you are interested in investing, there's a lot of information on our website about that. So please do contact us and we can have those conversations. Someone asked, Jerry, this is a question for you. Have you done outreach at Veggie Fest?
Yeah, we've never actually, I think we might have been there our first or second year of organizing. It just didn't have a lot of ROI for us. It's a little too far out there and actually pretty pricey at the time. And, to get volunteers to man a booth or woman a booth too. It's just a lot of work for very little return.
And Carly said she signed up for community solar. It was very easy. Thank you, Carly. Yes, we also signed up for community solar and we've gotten a couple bills already because we were assigned our solar farm and we are seeing a 25% savings over on our ComEd bill. So that's been nice. Any other questions? You can unmute and ask. You can raise your hand. You can type it in the chat. Yes, I see Beth Gunzel. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yeah. That's my name.
Hi, Beth.
Hey, I had a question, something that you said early in your presentation about grants being competitive for the co-op because of DuPage County's economic status and because it doesn't fall under the criteria of a food desert or things like that. But one of the things that I was thinking when you were talking is that doesn't mean that co-ops are accessible to people even in a wealthy county, because there's a lot of wealth inequality. So when you think about some communities in DuPage County, like Addison or Glendale Heights, I mean, they have poverty levels that are double, almost triple that of the average of DuPage County. Or when you're looking at different groups, you have, I mean, even in DuPage County, I mean, the poverty rate for Black households is like 18%. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about was this co-op's commitment to accessibility, which is a little bit different than, democracy and all these things that we're talking about of, and how wonderful it is to provide locally sourced and organic and fresh food. But if there's people who can't access this, what do we do about that? And is this a priority for the board? Is it a priority for the board to work on issues of equity? So if there's equal access to these benefits, because I mean, you can do a quick Google search and see how many traditionally underrepresented communities there are within even, in DuPage County. So I know that the Sugar Bee Co-op has a commitment to accessibility. I mean, I think there's like 80,000 people just in DuPage County that receive SNAP benefits. So that says to me, food insecurity, we're seeing higher poverty rates in different communities within DuPage County, and then different populations within DuPage County. And I'd like to hear about whether I have become an owner in a co-op that's concerned about that. Because to me, providing such wonderful benefits, if it's just for a tiny, tiny fraction of a population, feels very uncomfortable.
And that's a great question, and you make a lot of great points, because even though it is a wealthy community overall, that certainly doesn't extend to everybody, and there is a lot of inequality in pockets of our DuPage County as a whole. So I think that those are really good points. And we've brought those up in our grants. And yes, accessibility is absolutely a priority. As you mentioned, Sugar Beet Food Co-op has accessibility programs, as do almost every co-op I'm familiar with has accessibility programs. And there's a variety of things you can do. One of the main things that most co-ops do is they have what's called a staples program. So they offer staples like the things that most people, milk, eggs, flour, the staples, the key commodities that people buy at a discounted price every day for every shopper. A lot of co-ops in addition offer, and again, it depends on your community. Every community is just a little bit different, but one of the things that I personally like is that Common Ground Food Co-op in Urbana, which is kind of where I got my feet wet with my experience with co-ops, offers a program that it's called Food for All, and it has a couple different components. One component is a discounted or free ownership, so that you're an owner, you have access to become an owner of the store regardless of income, and they do not ask for proof of that, which I really appreciate, because people that can be hard, and it can be hard to ask for that help. So that is given to people who request it without any need to prove it. They also have a cooking on a budget series, which I think is pretty cool. What can you get in the store, and what can you cook that on a food stamp budget, basically. So that's something that I'm hoping that we offer. And one of the things that's really great about co-ops is that we all share our successes with each other. So we are constantly in communication with co-ops across the country, both ones like us that are looking to open and ones that are already open, and looking at what co-ops are doing really well in these different areas. So if there's a co-op whose program we really like Common Ground Food Co-op, we really like their Food for All access program. They've already offered to not only give us the entire program, but to help train us on it. So yes, that is absolutely a priority for us. And we need to figure out what access pieces work best for our community. And if you have any additional ideas, I'd love to talk more with you about that, because that as we move closer to opening day, we'll start looking at those kind of programming pieces more closely. So thank you. And that's a really
Thanks for
great
answering.
question.
Thank you.
Diana has her hand up.
Hi, everybody. I have kind of two questions. So as far as fundraising goes, and that building, the 109 South building, which is almost heartbreaking now to see it up. I just almost have to look away. But if we started fundraising now instead of the fall, owner fundraising or owner outreach fundraising, is there still a chance we could get it? If it's obviously, if it's not rented by then, now I see it says retail space available on it. So my question, I guess, is why wait till the fall? Actually, two questions. Why wait till the fall? And then I saw on the chat here, somebody said $400 an owner. Have we ever considered doing something like $700 an owner times 1,600 is, I don't know, Tom, you're the math guy. It's like $1 million something, right? Yeah, see, I feel like sometimes $1 million sounds like too much, but when you put it out to somebody and you go it's $700, I don't know, it seems more attainable, especially to people that don't maybe have a lot. I mean, and you guys, just kudos for fundraising during COVID. I mean, that was such a crazy, crazy time to do this. So I'm just, just kudos to a job well done. So two questions: why wait till the fall? And have we ever considered putting a number? Obviously, if you can afford more than $700, then go ahead, because there's going to be families that can't afford $700. So two questions. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. And I will answer the first. And if Jess Buttermer is still on the line and she's comfortable answering the second one, she'd probably be a better person to answer that. Of course, I can as well. But in terms of starting now, the capital campaign takes a ton of work. So we did two 8-week campaigns, and in each of those campaigns, we sent over 5,000 emails, actually closer to 8,000 emails, 5,000 texts, and several thousand phone calls. And that took about 15 to 20 volunteers. And so there's just a ton of planning that needs to go into getting the volunteer group together, getting the volunteer group trained to talk intelligently about the contribution options, because we definitely want to make sure we're giving owners correct information about, the preferred shares, the donations and the loans, what is the payback period, sitting in escrow, how does that whole thing work? So there's an education piece that has to happen. So it takes a couple months to even get ready for that. And we wrapped up our last campaign in the fall, and I think we all felt like we needed a break because it was 2 campaigns back to back, and it was a ton of work for everybody involved. And so we're going to use this time before the fall to start gathering our volunteers and planning, but also historically co-ops who have run capital campaigns over the summer, they don't do so well just because people in the summer tend to be tuned out. They're on vacation, they're not in school. It's hard to get people's attention anyway, but in the summer it's significantly harder. And there was another thing I wanted to say. Campaigns, an extended campaign that's like several months long typically isn't as effective as one that has a very short beginning and end, just because there's an urgency to that. And I think it would be hard for us to get a large group of volunteers willing to do that amount of work for like 16 weeks. The 8 weeks was really, really hard. So I think that's a really great question, and I appreciate the opportunity to explain that, because probably other people are wondering that as well. We will find out about some grants we've applied for coming up soon. Again, we're not counting on that, but it'd be nice to have some good news on that front. And I'm going to let Jess speak to some of that too.
Yeah, it would be fabulous to hear some good news on a grant front. We've been working really hard on writing those. In terms of the question of, the dollar amount, when we started our campaign, the dollar amount, if 100% of owners contributed $3,000, we would have met our goal. So we did start with that dollar figure, which was high for some people and very attainable for others. And some people thought, well, I know not everybody can, so they doubled or tripled it or quadrupled it in some cases. So we did see that. But we had 35% of our owners contribute over the course of 2 campaigns, and then at the end of that campaign we had about 1,000 owners who had not yet contributed. So we did an email campaign to those folks asking for a $22 donation, and we got like 100 additional contributions from that. So my thought is we can't count on that every owner figure, because when our ask was just as low as $22 for this match challenge that we had at the time, we didn't see great success with it. So $400 an owner is great, but we really have to think about, well, we've got 35% of our owners that we know are engaged and that we can count on. And so we really are probably, to be realistic about our expectations, we probably have to think about if 35% of our ownership were able to give, or maybe even 20%, because maybe, people already gave the most they could. I did talk to one of our consultants today that we worked with over the years, and she did say that when we go back, her experience was that in subsequent campaigns, that number grows of who gives another time. So I think, we had 7% of our owners give in both campaigns, and she said to expect it to be higher than 7% in our 3rd campaign, because that number would grow over time.
And Jess, there's another question here that you probably would be good to answer. I'm I'm trying to get to it, just one second. Chat's acting goofy. Did we apply for an SBA grant? And also, we received a phone call for an ask of $1,000. It's a tough ask for folks. I wonder about a way to have a GoFundMe or other way to distribute the costs.
Yeah, so that GoFundMe gets talked about a lot, and that hasn't been successful for cooperatives. You really, the GoFundMes that are the most successful are really tear at the heartstring type things where you have like a community that's coming together. And they're often raising thousands of dollars, not often raising millions of dollars, which is what we were trying to do. So we haven't pursued that path so much. And and I agree, people aren't as tuned into emails, so that's not our most effective way to reach out. But like Kathy said, we called everybody multiple times, and we texted everybody that wouldn't take our calls. So we feel like we reached out, and that email campaign was kind of a last low effort, for a very tired crew of people. But also our callers were trained, we needed people to invest on average 3,000, or somewhere between 3,000 and 7,000 to meet our goal. So that's where we started, but they also were very aware that if the conversation or the feedback that we were getting wasn't going in that direction for the person, that we could then talk about donations. So that's it's always been an option from day one. If $1,000 is too much, then donations are an option. And we've been accepting monthly donations since the start of our campaign as well. So those are ways that folks who find that $1,000 threshold to be a barrier to be able to contribute something, and every dollar really does help. As far as the SBA grant program, there hasn't been one that's been a true fit. We did just recently submit a community project funding request to Sean Caston's office. And we submitted that to both the SBA group and the transportation housing. So the acronym is THUD. So we have a couple of those programs, and we've also, we should be hearing soon about the state grant that we applied for through the Department of Economic Development. And that if we were able to get all or a part of that grant, which we felt we were really aligned for, and it was the most comprehensive grant we've ever written. So we feel really positive about it, that would be really helpful.
And then let's see, if this does not pan out, where does all the money go? Do we just keep trying to have the amount? That's a good question. So the amounts that have been invested are being held in escrow, and the board is not going to touch that money unless we have all of the money raised needed to move forward. So if for some reason we're not able to move forward, those investments would be given back to owners. Donations would stay with our fiscal sponsor, which is the Cooperative Development Services, and they will go towards another co-op and help another co-op open. And we cannot keep trying because every location that we vet costs money. So for, Tom kind of walked through the expenses of the market study. Those are typically $15,000. So every potential location we have to vet. We don't know whether that location, even if it looks good to us and our architects, and as much knowledge as we have, we are not store designers and we are not market study analysts. So we have to do our due diligence because we're asking people to invest in this project. And so that costs about $15,000 to $20,000. We have legal fees that go along with lease negotiations. Those are anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000, depending on the landlord and who we're dealing with. And then we have site feasibility. So we have to make sure we have a site that will fit the equipment and that is cooled properly. So, and has the correct features needed to do build out. And so that's another $5,000. So, you know, that's why the board has kind of decided that, you know, if this fall, we're going to see that we can raise the rest of the money, but we are probably limited to looking at, you know, vetting 1 or 2 additional sites in Lombard before, you know, we don't have enough money to proceed because, you know, as Tom's treasurer's report shows, we spend money every year to, you know, grow ownership and to do all of the things that we need to do, like training ourselves. The GM search is going to cost some money because we're going to hire a consulting firm. We have our financials vetted occasionally by consultants. The board is going to a training, which we're, you know, paying for the cost of accommodations ourselves, but the co-op is, you know, paying for the registration fee. So there's just ongoing cost of doing business that we can't continue indefinitely. So I think the board at this point has decided that this fall will be the final funding campaign to see if we can raise the funds. That gives us a whole lot of leverage when we go to lease negotiations to say, we're ready to go. We have all of the money. We just need a really great lease. And so it also gives us the confidence to continue, you know, spending the money we need to spend to vet sites.
And I think there was a question about, you know, what is the one way you plan to raise funds and what is the actual plan? You know, we expect to go back to our owners, and the most effective way to do that is to call them and possibly text them, and have we're very effective at having pop-up events in various communities where we invited people to come out and talk as a group and have a drink. And so we will assemble a team and the team will decide the best way forward. But those are the things that have worked in the past and are likely to be repeated. But we're always looking for talented minds to come. Certainly, if there's anybody who wants to lead the charge or has experience doing this in other capacities, that's really helpful to our team.
And if you think of anything, I don't see any other questions. If you think of anything that comes up, you know, you're like, oh, I wish I asked that during the meeting, please feel free to email us. We're very responsive to emails. So you can email board@prairiefood.coop and it'll go to the board and one of us will respond. We have lots of information on our website. You know, we try our best to keep that updated. And we send out communications whenever anything, you know, big happens. And so just, you know, make sure that our emails are landing in your inbox. And if they're going to spam, move them over to the inbox. We're very active on social media as well. So, we really try our best to be transparent with our owners about, you know, where we're at and where we're going. And I just want to say how much, you know, on behalf of the board, we really appreciate all of you tonight, you know, spending, a little over an hour with us to hear more about where we're at and what our plans are and what our challenges are. It means a lot just to have your support and coming here tonight to listen to where we are. So thank you very much and appreciate all the questions, really, really good questions. So we will wrap up and just say thank you. And hopefully we will see you all at one of the upcoming events that Jerry talked about. So have a great evening and don't forget to vote. If you haven't voted, please vote. And I think Jerry wants to say something.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Good night, all. No, but just don't leave the conversation.
Okay.
Just
All
be
right.
out.
All right. Good night, everybody.